I've always been the person who turns on the air conditioning before putting on the seatbelt. In Texas, you learn early. If the sun hits the hood, the car turns into an oven. That morning didn't seem any different. I parked outside my work in Midland, walked to the cafe, came back with the sweating ice cup in my hand, threw my bag onto the seat, turned the key, and did what I always do. Twist the selector, AC to max. The air came out lukewarm for half a second. And then, the sound. If you've never heard it up close, I need to tell you, it's not a video sound. It's dry, with multiple grains, hurried and precise, as if a handful of metal beads were vibrating inside your neck. The rattle started inside the dashboard, behind the air vents, and I swear my body understood before my brain did. I turned off the AC reflexively. The rattle stopped. I turned it back on, just to make sure I wasn't crazy. The sound responded, now closer, as if the thing were positioned exactly where my hand was. I pulled back, and the feeling that the car was no longer mine hit hard. I've heard that sound many times from the outside, on trails, at my dad's ranch. In the distance, the warning that every Texas kid learns to respect. Inside the car, it was something else. It was intimate. It was invasive. I pulled the bag back, without looking, as if pulling it could save a part of me. And then came the first wave of denial. Loose rolling, fan scraping, dried leaf. The brain always tries to give you a version you can handle. I almost believed it, until the rattle changed rhythm, rhythmic, accelerating when my hand moved the button. It was a response, not a part. My name is Hannah. I'm 32 years old, work as a nurse, and I always thought my fear was of things we don't see under a microscope. I never thought I'd have to diagnose my own car, but I stood there, with the door open, one foot out, the other in, as if that gave me an escape route. People passed by. The parking lot continued as normal. The sky was cliché blue, and I, alone, with a sound that didn't belong in a car, trying to decide whether to breathe. I didn't breathe. I left. I walked around and leaned against the side as if the metal could hold me. The rattle silenced. I thought, maybe it's outside. I bent down, looked underneath. Hot, dusty, a piece of plastic flapping. Nothing. The AC off, the world still. I went back, reached for the key from the outside, turned the AC back on with my hand stretched out, ready to jump. The rattle exploded again, now with an echo inside the dashboard. I pulled my hand back, like I'd touched fire, and it was in that second that I saw it. Not the head, not the whole body, just a movement behind the vents on the passenger side. A dark semicircle that recoiled when the fan blew. I closed my eyes, just for an instant, to give the fear a face, and it had one. Rattlesnake. I grabbed my phone with fingers that weren't mine. I dialed 911, and the sentence came out the way every dispatcher must hate. There's a snake inside my car. Protocol silence, then the trained voice. Are you safe? Inside or outside the vehicle? I said outside, and I wanted to say, I want to stay outside forever. They asked for the address. I gave it. Stay away from the vehicle. Don't try to interact. Unit on the way. What I didn't expect was how much memory woke up. I remembered my mom teaching me to listen for rattles as if they were a forbidden word. I remembered a story my grandfather told about a neighbor who sat in his truck on an August morning and never got up. I remembered those news stories we call urban legends until it happens to someone you know. And now, out of all the people in the parking lot, someone was me. The cafe manager came with a cloth in her hand, and that look of, what can I do? Nothing, I said, and it wasn't rude, it was real. A coworker came down with a flashlight, and I could only raise my hand, asking him to stop. It's a rattlesnake, I said. and the word calmed and scared at the same time. Because in Texas, it's normal. Too normal. Normal scares more when it goes where it shouldn't. I kept counting seconds. The shadow of the rearview mirror fell on the seat like a crooked cross. The car, with the driver's door open, looked like a panting animal. And at some point, distant enough for me to think it was my imagination, I heard the rattle again, this time without wind, as if it wasn't just hidden, as if it were angry, reorganizing its body, changing position. I took 2 steps back. I was 6 feet from the car. I wanted to be 6 states away. When the patrol car arrived, I cried in a way that didn't match the person who 5 minutes earlier had treated a shock patient. The officer got out calmly, opened the trunk, took out a hook that seemed lighter than I thought it should be. He looked at me the way you look when you know the other person has crossed an invisible line. "You did the right thing by leaving," he said. I wanted to say, I did the right thing by being born far from the desert and changed my mind too late. But I just nodded. I pointed. There. He leaned in, didn't touch, turned on the flashlight, not the car. "Let's keep the AC off," he said, as if talking to the animal. I saw the reflection of something between the vents. Small, but enough. He breathed, and I mimicked. "This is going to take a while," he said. "These stories almost never go quickly, but we prefer it that way." I also preferred everything that didn't involve a rattlesnake in my dashboard. I've always parked near the grass because of the shade. In July, any tree is a blessing. The night before, I arrived late, after a shift that went long, and parked the car aligned with a strip of tall grass that the condo promised to cut. In any other state, this would be just a maintenance oversight. Here, it's an invitation. Texas is the kind of place where the ground speaks softly and expects you to know the language. It didn't happen suddenly. The week before, I'd heard a strange noise when I turned the fan to low. A light cheek, as if dry leaves had gotten into the grill. I ignored it. The air filters, I thought. On the second day, the smell. It wasn't strong. It was a sweet metallic odor, the kind you wouldn't notice on a rushed day. I noticed. I thought it was the spilled coffee, the forgotten fruit that turned into past due in the glove compartment. I took everything out, cleaned it, sprayed a spray that promises to kill any smell. It killed the others. Left this one. I didn't connect the dots. No one does. We think cars are sealed, that the cabin is a cocoon, that mine doesn't talk to the outside, until it does. I had left the window slightly open for 15 minutes 2 nights ago while waiting for a call and looking at the sky. Heat. I blamed myself for 15 minutes. Then I stopped. That's not how these stories begin, I was told later. Sometimes it's the early morning. Sometimes it's the air vent where a slim body finds a corridor. Sometimes it's the heated engine, the wheel well, the fender gap. Sometimes it's everything, and you just got chosen in the desert lottery. I grew up hearing that a rattlesnake doesn't attack, it warns. That the rattle is nature's gift. I'm here. Don't step. I respect that. I respect the honesty of the sound. What no one prepares you for is when this warning comes from a place where you can't step away. My dad taught me to walk on the ranch with heavy steps, to let the sound of my body say, "Get out," to wear thick boots, to not put my hand where I can't see. I did all that for years. And then one day, I sat on a gray fabric seat, tight, with airbags, ISOFIX, 5-star safety, and none of that mattered. Because danger had entered through the only place I don't watch, the fan. The officer, let's call him Carter, opened the hood gently. The metal rose with a small groan. I'd never seen anyone open a hood with so much respect. He secured it with the rod, moved wires with his eyes, not with his hands. "It happens in the summer," he said. "Heat, shelter, rodents. If there's a rat, there's prey." The word rat hit me with a physical sense of yes. I hadn't seen it, but my nose had. The sweet metallic smell, the dry droppings that turned to dust. I thought of the parking lot at night, the fast food trash flying around, the cats that sometimes hunt, the neighbors' dogs. Food chains don't need an invitation. Carter walked around the car, crouched again, and illuminated the external grille. "Don't touch inside the cabin," he said. "If it's in a defensive position, the space is hers." He asked a colleague to bring a thick blanket, a fire extinguisher, not to use, to show, and positioned it nearby. "If she comes out, we need space. You, stay behind that SUV." I obeyed without asking. He asked me questions that sounded absurd and precise. "Did you hear what speed it was on when you turned it on?" I said, "On max." He nodded. "She probably retreated to the duct when she felt the wind, and the rattle came by resonance. It sounds like it's in the dashboard, but it could be anywhere in the crossover." The word resonance gave me an excuse for why my panic was bigger than necessary. It didn't help much. In the middle of all this, I thought of the videos I watch on the internet because I don't sleep well. Person finds snake in car. Officer deals with rattlesnake on the windshield. Technicians rescue a pile of snakes from the hood. I'd always watch them from behind a screen. I had a list of prepared judgments. How did they let it get this far? I'd never. This is another country inside the US. And then the other country was my parking lot. And the judgment turned into a bad mirror. Carter asked for silence and turned the AC fan to low with the engine off, using the battery. The soft rumble started. Nothing. It increased a little. Nothing. Change direction. Windshield, feet, face. That's when it came. A short shake, drier, as if someone was vibrating a metal bracelet close to my mouth. He turned it off. "It's in the passenger duct," he said. "It's not big by the sound, but it doesn't need to be big." I felt a nervous laugh trying to be born. It died just in time. Two things can happen at this moment. You freeze and let those who know what they're doing act. Or you try to help because you want it to end. I froze. Good thing. They inserted an endoscope, a camera with a cable, through the air vent, slowly, with the patience of a fisherman. The image appeared on a small screen. Black, plastic walls, a shine that looked like water. And then a semicircle of scales, in macro, the texture of the impossible. The camera trembled a little. Carter held it with 2 fingers, firm. "It's here." I lost track of time. The parking lot turned into a world without cars, just mine, the patrol car, and a heat that seemed to grow with fear. They offered me water. I refused. I wanted to feel my throat dry as proof that this was happening. A woman I didn't know placed her hand on my shoulder without asking. I let her, and I kept staring at my car, like someone staring at a wounded animal. Their plan was simple on paper. Locate, don't provoke, create access, guide the exit to a container. All of this without giving the rattlesnake a reason to strike, and without losing control. What seemed to be missing was something I hadn't counted on. Time. Time stretched. Carter asked them to turn everything off, wait a few minutes. She noticed movement, heat. We'll let the environment decide for her. I counted to 200 without meaning to. Every 10, I heard an imaginary tch-tch-tch-tch. The body creates sound when fear needs to practice. He positioned a rubber mat under the passenger door and opened it carefully. The seat was as clean as always, and this contrast made me angry. The car seemed innocent, and I knew it wasn't. He took out the glove compartment with a motion that, if I'd done it, would have broken the clips. Inside, there were things from any life. A manual, a pen, a forgotten lipstick, an old receipt. He stacked them almost with care on the hood. Below, the cavity we don't think about, the underside of the dashboard, wires, ducts. The flashlight went in. and I found myself holding my breath to hear the silence react. Someone behind commented, "It could be in the cabin air filter." Carter nodded without looking. He loosened the access, revealed a dusty rectangle holding bits of leaves. The smell came stronger, now with that rat-like note I had detected without knowing. He loosened the filter with 2 touches, pulled it a few centimeters, and stopped. The rattle responded, sharp, 2 seconds, aggressive, like a no. I took an involuntary step back and hit the grill of the other car. The cold metal on my elbow brought me back. Carter didn't rush. He returned the filter to its place, closed it, breathed, and waited. "She's stuck in the duct, probably coiled around some curve. We're not pulling this out dry." He asked for the fine hook. The colleague, a guy with arms that looked more like someone who works in rescue than with paper, handed it over. I didn't look at the hands, I looked at the face. No bravado, it was work. With the endoscope on one side and the hook on the other, they formed a triangle. The camera showed the scale in macro, and the scale didn't do anything, which was everything. He gently touched the plastic 2 fingers away from where she was. The rattle responded, now longer, and the camera trembled. "Okay," he said, to no one and to everyone. "I think it's juvenile." The word juvenile entered me along with the image of the problematic. Juveniles make more mistakes. Juveniles are more reactive. Juveniles have fewer rattles. The sound is different, but not innocent. "Is there any way to call someone from wildlife?" I asked, feeling like my voice was an intruder. "They're on their way," he replied, without taking his eyes off the situation. "But if she decides to leave before, we need to be ready." He positioned a tall bucket with a lid at passenger floor height. He put a blanket over it, as if he wanted to turn the bucket into a hole. Darkness is the exit. The breeze blew, and the hot air from the parking lot didn't do anything for us. I looked around to see if the world was still happening. It was. People going to work, someone laughing loudly across the way, a motorcycle crossing the street. I wished everyone would be quiet. It was like performing first aid on a heart, and the city thought it was just another Tuesday. He touched the duct again, a little lower this time, drawing a path with the metal. The rattle came accompanied by a new sound, the friction of something hard against plastic. I saw a sudden movement on the screen, a blur, and the camera lost focus. "She turned," Carter said. "If she comes out, she'll come through the grill." He pulled his hand back, repositioned the bucket, and for the first time, I heard the sound outside the panel, a dry rustling behind the fins. I didn't see the head. I saw the shadow. Wildlife arrived with a truck smaller than I thought, a woman in a vest and a man with a containment box. She introduced herself, smiled without teeth, not out of malice, but out of concentration. "We'll use the gentle method," she said. "Minimal noise, minimal light, specific opening." They cut a small access on the inner side, a window the manual doesn't recommend, but the situation demanded. The plastic gave a slow sound. The light entered like an afternoon. The rattle stopped. The silence that followed was the most dangerous of all. It was the silence of decision. She placed a tool that looked like a short hook with a loop. "If I get the loop on the right part of the body, the head won't reach my hand," she said, and I felt like I was going to vomit. "If I miss, I'll let go and try again." I didn't understand if missing was part or risk. I just held my own wrist to keep from trembling so visibly. The head appeared 3 centimeters, like a comma coming out of a sentence. The eyes, the snout, the tongue. The sound of the rattle came back, different, now with open air, fuller, as if announcing, "Here I am." I took one step, then another, and I stopped. Because I knew the next sound would be the one that decides how this story ends. The snap of the loop closing, or the sound of the body retreating back into the labyrinth. The loop closed. I heard it. A soft click, and her hand held firmly without needing brute force. The rattlesnake reacted as nature demands. Rattle at full volume, body twisting, head searching for an angle. The duct responded with creaks, the plastic flexing a bit, and everything in me wanted to run. I didn't run. They couldn't let go. And they didn't. When you imagine removing a snake from a car, you think of a single motion. It's not. It's a sequence of small decisions where every centimeter has a mind of its own. She guided the head first, keeping it away from the hand. The body came frozen, a loop stuck at more than one point. Carter used the fine hook from below, lifting the duct slightly to free the curve. The colleague held the edge of the opening, not to pull, but to prevent the edge from cutting the animal. A detail I wouldn't have thought of, and that embarrassed me for first thinking of, just get it out already. The head came out, the body didn't. Juvenile, yes, but with enough mass to get stuck at the wrong pause. "Don't pull," she said to the air, and the message was for any nearby impulse. She adjusted the angle of the loop a little further back. Not at the neck, at the shoulder, if you can call it that. The movement gave the head more slack to be guided. The rattle, now outside the labyrinth, was hitting the mat, vibrating in a register I thought I would feel for weeks inside my chest. I felt it in my foot. At that moment, the obvious became a problem. The passenger door was open, but the widest exit was on the driver's side, where the access had been cut. To go through there meant crossing in front of the seat, and there was no world in which I would allow a rattlesnake to pass through where I sit. They knew. They repositioned the bucket, creating a straight line from the opening to the container. The frozen body needed help. Carter, with the tip of the hook, unwound a segment with the delicacy of someone who works with watches, not snakes. Another ring came out, then another. The rattlesnake was alive from the desert, but the fear was metal. Every edge could scratch, every corner could tear. "A little more," she said again, and that phrase, coming from another mouth, would have irritated me. There, it was music. The body passed, a little over a meter of venomous promise, covered in dust, beautiful in a way that seemed indecent to call beautiful. The bucket received it. The lid came over, with a gesture that wasn't dramatic. It was clean. The rattle continued for a few seconds, muffled, then stopped. I sat on the curb. My knees decided they belonged to someone 80 years old. The world came back, the sound of the street, a dog barking once and not insisting, someone asking, "Is it over?" Life, that insistent thing. I cried, but it wasn't from fear. It was from respect. I had a rattlesnake in my dashboard, and the people who arrived made it seem like my panic was just a small part of this story. "She's not big," the biologist said, looking through the ventilation hole in the lid. "Probably juvenile. This explains how she got in." But the behavior was that of an adult in defense. I laughed, and it sounded wrong. "Adult behavior," I repeated, and she looked at me with the eyes of someone who understands metaphors without meaning to. "They just want to leave," she said. And I thought about everything that just wants to leave, and yet still enters our lives. Carter started the post-operation, replacing what could be, explaining what was cut, what needed to be replaced. "This duct will have to replace," he said. "Cabin filter, for sure. Deep cleaning of the air system, and just for your peace of mind, checking under the dashboard." "My peace no longer exists," I said, and only afterward did I realize the tone. He smiled. The kind of smile a paramedic gives when they tell you the pain will pass while adjusting the IV. The condo appeared late in the story. Someone from maintenance promised to cut the grass that very day. I wanted to say it was too late by an hour, by a life. I didn't say it. I was busy thanking those who returned my car to me. I wasn't going to drive it at that moment. I wasn't even going to touch the key. They offered a tow to the workshop. I accepted. On the tow journey, the biologist explained things I should have known. and others I had never thought about. If you smell rodent in the car, don't ignore it. If you hear something in the AC that isn't wind, turn it off and open the windows. Never stick your hand where you can't see. And remember, in extreme heat, cars become oases. For whom? I asked. For everyone who needs shade, she said. At the shop, the mechanic lifted the car, removed the lower protections, and examined every gap. He found rodent droppings near the fender, wires with tooth marks. Full story. The car was cleaned with a care I would pay in gold. Sprays, ozone, filter change, new ducts, and a blessing from the mechanic, which is worth more than any manual. Now, yes. I thought the climax had been the bucket. It wasn't. It was sitting back in the driver's seat. 2 hours later, with everything cleaned, the sun still high, the workshop smelling of neutral cleaner and rubber, I picked up the key as if it were a small, nervous animal. Carter was still there, papers signed, reports, the bureaucracy that turns the incredible into numbers. "Do you want me to start it for you?" he asked. I said no. And it wasn't because of courage. It was because I needed to cross over. I sat down, closed the door. The sound of the world was cut off. My heart took the place of the engine noise that didn't yet exist. I looked at the air vents, new inside, invisible. I placed my hand on the AC button and pulled it back, like a child testing hot water. I started the engine first. The rev, normal. No phantom noise. The whole workshop seemed to listen along. I breathed. I set the AC to low. Wind. Just wind. The cold air came like a late forgiveness. I cried again. Laughing and crying are neighbors on the body's map. I turned it up a little. Wind. I turned it up more. Wind. I looked at Carter, who was outside, and he gave me a thumbs up, a silly gesture that, in that moment, was sacred. Driving home was a religious experience. I didn't turn on the music. I heard every screw. Every noise that had never mattered now had a name and surname. The road was straight, the sky wide, the shadows long. I looked twice at the passenger's mat, 3 times at the glove compartment. At the traffic light, I kept my foot steady, my heel glued, as if the ground were an anchor. And at some point, I understood that fear was giving way to something else. Attention. I was listening to my car like I should have always listened. At home, I parked far from the grass. Ridiculously far. I texted the condo manager about the grass. He responded with a "already solved," a photo of a tractor that looked like a campaign ad. I laughed. I texted my mom. "I'm fine." She called. I answered with the voice you use in church. She listened, stayed silent, and in the end, she said, "You heard." And that was it, in the end. I heard. Night fell, and I had to decide. Do I lock the car in the street, or leave the garage open just in case I need to run? It seemed like a choice between logic and superstition. I locked it. I locked it twice. I looked over my shoulder on the way back. I checked the garage floor with a flashlight. Nothing. The house welcomed me with the familiar sound of the central air, and I shivered. The sound of the wind had moved places inside me. I didn't sleep early. I sat on the couch and watched videos that had previously been entertainment, and now were study. How rattlesnakes get into cars, peak activity periods, difference between juvenile and adult rattlesnakes. I learned more in one night than in 30 years of Texas. That they look for shade, that they follow smells, that they're more active at dawn and dusk, that they don't want you. They want not you. I learned about the sound, that the rattle isn't just noise, it's language, rhythm, intensity, direction. I had been spoken to. Carter called me around 9, after hours. Just to confirm, the wildlife team released the rattlesnake far from the urban area, everything's fine. I thanked him with a formality that didn't fit. Thank you for everything. He said, it's my job. I wanted to say, and it's my story, but I swallowed it. The story belongs to those who come out whole from it. I went to sleep with the bedroom window slightly open. The night air, even warm, felt more honest than the artificial kind. I closed my eyes, and the sound came, not from the car, from memory. The rattle, elastic, metallic, ancient. I held onto the edge of the blanket like holding the edge of a boat, and I let the sound pass. It passed. I slept. 2 weeks later, in the same parking lot, a woman stopped me. Are you the one with the car with the snake? I smiled, embarrassed. Yes, the story had spread like wind in an open field. She wanted to know if I heard things. I said yes, that I heard things that had always been there. The rattle became a ruler. With it, I measured what deserved attention. During this time, I created small rituals, knocking twice on the door before opening, not out of superstition, but to announce myself. Looking underneath with my phone's flashlight when parking near grass, listening to the first second of the AC with my hand outside, ready to turn it back off, smelling the car before getting in. It sounds ridiculous, but your nose saves you, and most importantly, not mocking those who say, I think I heard something strange. One afternoon, coming back from the store, I pushed the cart with bags and stopped for a second to reply to a message. The sun was low, the sound of crickets. In the distance, someone was mowing grass. I started putting the bags in the trunk and heard very faintly a sound that wasn't plastic nor metal. It was so subtle that I almost didn't respect it. I lowered the bags, took 2 steps back, and waited. The sound didn't come back. And that's when I understood the hard part. Sometimes it doesn't come back. And sometimes it does. The following week, the condo's security camera sent an alert at 3:14 a.m. Motion in the neighboring parking spot. The footage showed a streak leaving the grass patch, crossing to the front wheel of a pickup truck, disappearing underneath. No drama, no show. A slip that only a trained eye would recognize. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Not from panic, from respect. For the small world of things that happens beneath our feet, while we believe asphalt is the end of the world. I thought about selling the car. I didn't sell it. I thought about moving. I didn't move. I thought about never turning on the AC again. I turned it on every day. Being from Texas is this: living with the idea that danger is less about a monster in the dark and more about an honest warning you have to learn to listen to. I chose to listen. And in the process, I learned something else. That these stories don't end with never again. They end with now I know. If you're still here, I want to ask you something without metaphors. If you turned on the air conditioning today, and the car responded with a rattle, would you turn it off and leave? Or would you put your head closer to make sure? Comment the word rattle and tell me. Would you be able to hear your own fear in the right way, in time? The next case is already recorded. Subscribe, activate the bell, and watch the recommended video on the final screen so you don't break the horror sequence.